The ultrasound image trembled in my hands, a grainy black and white snapshot of betrayal. I stared at Thomas, my husband of 6 years, waiting for him to say it was all a mistake. But his eyes, usually warm and reassuring, now avoided mine. "Evelyn, I know this is a shock," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "But Adeline needs our help." I slammed the picture onto the kitchen counter. "Your sister is pregnant? And you want us to raise her child?" The words tasted bitter in my mouth. Thomas ran a hand through his graying hair. "She can't keep it. The father, he's married. It would ruin everything." "And what about us, Thomas? What about our plans?" I could feel my carefully constructed world crumbling around me. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "We always said we'd wait to have children. Our careers, our travels. This isn't our child, Evelyn. It's different." I laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even me. "Different? How is raising your irresponsible sister's baby any different?" The doorbell rang, shattering the tense silence between us. Thomas looked relieved at the interruption. "That'll be Mom and Dad. They wanted to talk about the situation." "Great, just great." I smoothed my hair and took a deep breath, steeling myself for the onslaught of Margaret and Joseph's misplaced concern. As soon as they entered, Margaret enveloped me in a perfume-scented hug. "Oh, Evelyn, dear, how are you holding up?" I extracted myself from her embrace. "I'm fine, Margaret, though I'd be better if someone had bothered to consult me about this arrangement." Joseph cleared his throat. "Now, Evelyn, we all need to pull together as a family. Adeline made a mistake, but a mistake?" I interrupted. "Getting a parking ticket is a mistake. This is a life-altering decision that affects all of us." Thomas placed a hand on my shoulder. "Honey, please, let's just hear them out." I shrugged him off and turned to face my in-laws. "No, Thomas. I want to know why everyone seems to think it's okay to make decisions about my life without even asking me." Margaret's face crumpled. "But, dear, we thought you'd be happy. You and Thomas have been married for so long and no children." "By choice," I exploded. "We chose not to have children. We have goals, dreams, and now you all want to throw that away because Adeline couldn't be bothered with birth control?" The room fell silent. I could see the shock on their faces, but I was beyond caring. Joseph was the first to speak. "Evelyn, I know this is difficult, but Adeline is family. We can't turn our backs on her." "And what about me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Am I not family too?" Thomas reached for me again. "Of course you are. That's why we need you. Adeline can't do this alone." I stepped back, suddenly feeling claustrophobic in my own home. "I need some air," I muttered, grabbing my keys from the hook by the door. "Evelyn, wait!" Thomas called after me, but I was already halfway down the driveway. As I slid into the driver's seat of my car, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. The woman staring back at me looked lost, angry, and more than a little scared. I started the engine, not sure where I was going, but knowing I couldn't stay in that house a moment longer. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. "Please come back. We need to talk about this." I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and pulled out of the driveway. As I drove away from the life I thought I knew, one thought kept echoing in my mind. How had everything gone so wrong so quickly? I found myself parked outside the small art gallery where Thomas and I first met. The irony wasn't lost on me. 6 years ago, this place held the promise of a bright future. Now it felt like a monument to shattered dreams. My phone buzzed again. "Thomas." I ignored it, letting my mind wander back to those early days. We were so in sync then, sharing our hopes and plans over late-night coffee and scribbled notes. "We'll travel the world," Thomas had said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Write my novels, showcase your jewelry, no kids to tie us down." I'd agreed wholeheartedly. We'd build our careers, see the places we'd only dreamed of, and then maybe we'd consider starting a family. But now, a tap on my window startled me out of my reverie. It was Claire, my best friend and fellow jewelry designer. "Evelyn, what are you doing here?" Her concerned face peered in at me. I rolled down the window, forcing a smile. "Just reminiscing, I guess." Claire's eyes narrowed. "Thomas called me. He's worried sick. What's going on?" I sighed, unlocking the door. "Get in. It's a long story." As Claire settled into the passenger seat, I spilled everything. Adeline's pregnancy, Thomas's decision, the ambush with his parents. With each word, the anger I'd been holding back bubbled to the surface. They just expect me to give up everything we've worked for, I finished, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Our dreams, our plans, none of it matters because precious Adeline screwed up again. Claire placed a hand on my arm. Oh, Ev, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do? I shook my head. I don't know. I can't just abandon our life together, but I can't raise Adeline's child either. It's not fair. Have you told Thomas how you feel? I laughed bitterly. He's not listening. None of them are. It's like I don't even exist in this equation. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Adeline. Please come home. We need to talk. I showed Claire the message, my jaw clenching. See? Now she wants to talk, after everything's been decided. Claire squeezed my hand. Maybe this is your chance to make them listen. Go home, Evelyn. Fight for what you want. I nodded slowly, starting the car. You're right. It's time they heard me. When I pulled into our driveway, I was surprised to see Adeline's car parked haphazardly near the garage. Taking a deep breath, I walked into the house. The scene that greeted me was chaos. Adeline was sobbing on the couch while Margaret hovered nearby, wringing her hands. Thomas and Joseph were in a heated discussion by the fireplace. All eyes turned to me as I entered. Evelyn, Thomas rushed over. Thank God you're back. We have a situation. I raised an eyebrow. Another one? Adeline hiccuped through her tears. The father, he found out. He's threatening to tell his wife everything if I don't get rid of the baby. My heart sank, just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated. What do you want to do, Adeline? I asked, my voice surprisingly calm. She looked up at me, mascara streaking her cheeks. I don't know. I can't have an abortion, but I can't keep it either. Thomas said. He said you'd help. I felt all the air leave my lungs. Did he now? Thomas at least had the decency to look ashamed. Evelyn, I know we should have discussed this first, but no, I cut him off. No more excuses, Thomas. This isn't just about Adeline anymore. This is about us, our marriage, our future. The room fell silent. I could feel the weight of everyone's stares, but for once I didn't care. I won't do it, I said firmly. I won't give up my life, my dreams, to clean up someone else's mess, not even family. Margaret gasped. Evelyn, how can you be so selfish? I turned to her, years of pent-up frustration finally boiling over. Selfish? You want to talk about selfish? Let's talk about how you've enabled Adeline's behavior for years. Let's talk about how you're all so quick to sacrifice my happiness without a second thought. I looked at each of them in turn, ending with Thomas. If you want to raise this child, fine, but you'll do it without me. With that, I turned and walked out, leaving a stunned silence in my wake. As I closed the door behind me, I realized with startling clarity that nothing would ever be the same again. I sat in my studio, surrounded by half-finished jewelry pieces, trying to lose myself in work. But my mind kept drifting back to the chaos of the past few days. The doorbell rang, startling me out of my thoughts. I opened it to find Joseph standing there, looking uncomfortable. Evelyn, can we talk? He asked, his voice gruff. I hesitated, then nodded, letting him in. We sat in tense silence for a moment before he spoke. I know you're upset about all this, he began, but you have to understand, Adeline's always been delicate. I couldn't help but scoff. Delicate? Is that what we're calling it now? Joseph's face reddened. Now listen here. You don't know what it was like raising her. The tantrums, the rebellions. And whose fault is that? I shot back. You and Margaret have been cleaning up her messes for years. When does it stop? He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. We just wanted to protect her. And what about protecting your son's marriage? What about me? Joseph sighed heavily. Evelyn, you have to understand, family comes first. I thought I was family, I said quietly. Before he could respond, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Claire. Turn on the news, Channel 5, now. Frowning, I grabbed the remote and switched on the TV. My jaw dropped as I saw Adeline's face plastered across the screen. Local model Adeline Hartley has come forward with shocking allegations against prominent businessman Robert Caldwell. Hartley claims Caldwell is the father of her unborn child and has been pressuring her to terminate the pregnancy. I turned to Joseph, who looked as stunned as I felt. Did you know about this? He shook his head. She never said. Oh, God, Margaret's going to have a fit. As if on cue, my phone exploded with notifications. Texts from Thomas, missed calls from Margaret, even a message from Adeline herself. I'm sorry. I had to do something. I turned back to Joseph. This changes everything, doesn't it? He nodded slowly. Robert Caldwell. He's not just any businessman. He's running for mayor. If this gets out... It's already out, I said, gesturing to the TV. What was Adeline thinking? Joseph's phone rang. He answered it, his voice strained. Yes, Margaret, I'm seeing it now. No, I'm with Evelyn. We'll be right there. He hung up and looked at me pleadingly. Evelyn, I know you're angry, but we need you, please. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. Part of me wanted to refuse, to let them deal with the mess they'd created. But another part, fine, I said finally. But this is the last time. After this, I'm done cleaning up after Adeline. The drive to Thomas and Adeline's parents' house was tense. When we arrived, the scene was chaos. Margaret was in tears, Thomas was pacing, and Adeline was nowhere to be seen. Where is she? I demanded. Thomas ran a hand through his hair. She's not answering her phone. We think she might have gone to confront Caldwell. My blood ran cold. Are you kidding me after that stunt on the news? Margaret sobbed harder. My poor baby, what if he hurts her? I bit back a retort about Adeline hurting herself with her own actions. Instead, I turned to Thomas. We need to find her. Now. He nodded, grabbing his keys. As we headed for the door, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. The woman staring back at me looked tired, angry, and scared. But there was something else there, too. Determination. I realized then that this wasn't just about Adeline anymore. This was about standing up to years of enabling behavior, of misplaced priorities. As we stepped out into the night, I made a silent vow. This would be the last time I let Adeline's drama dictate my life. One way or another, things were going to change. The months following Adeline's televised scandal were a blur of tense silences and cold shoulders. I threw myself into my work, spending long hours in my studio, crafting intricate pieces that seemed to reflect the tangled mess of my life. Thomas and I barely spoke, our conversations reduced to clipped exchanges about household chores and bills. One crisp autumn morning, I woke to the sound of Thomas's phone ringing. His muffled voice drifted through the walls, urgent and worried. I tried to ignore it, but curiosity got the better of me. I crept to the door, straining to hear. Adeline, calm down. Where are you? The hospital? What happened? My heart sank. Of course it was Adeline. It was always Adeline. Thomas burst into our bedroom, his face pale. Evelyn, we need to go. Adeline's in labor. I stared at him, disbelief and anger warring inside me. And his eyes widened. And Evelyn, she needs us. She's scared and alone. She made her choices. Thomas, why is it always our job to pick up the pieces? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. Because she's family. Please, Evelyn, I can't do this alone. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of years of resentment pressing down on me, but beneath it all there was a tiny flicker of something else. Compassion? Duty? I wasn't sure. Fine, I said, my voice tight, but this is the last time. The drive to the hospital was tense, filled with unspoken words and simmering emotions. When we arrived, we found Adeline in a private room, looking smaller and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. Oh, thank God you're here, she sobbed, reaching for Thomas. He rushed to her side, leaving me standing awkwardly by the door. Hours passed in a haze of doctors, nurses, and Adeline's screams. I found myself pacing the hallway, unable to bear the suffocating atmosphere of the delivery room. As dawn broke, a tiny cry pierced the air. Thomas emerged, his face a mix of exhaustion and wonder. It's a girl, he said softly. She's beautiful. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. He hesitated, then added, Adeline, she wants to see you. Steeling myself, I entered the room. Adeline lay in the bed, cradling a small bundle. She looked up at me, her eyes red-rimmed and pleading. Evelyn, she whispered, I'm so sorry for everything. I can't do this. I'm not ready to be a mother. I felt a chill run down my spine. What are you saying, Adeline? She looked down at the baby, then back at me. I want you and Thomas to raise her. Please, you're the only ones I trust. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I stared at her, unable to process what I was hearing. You can't be serious, Adeline. This is your child. I know, she said, tears streaming down her face. But I'll only mess her up. You and Thomas, you can give her the life she deserves. Before I could respond, Thomas appeared at my side. What's going on? I turned to him, my voice barely above a whisper. She wants us to take the baby. His eyes widened, a mix of shock and, was that hope? Evelyn, maybe we should consider. No, I cut him off, my voice sharp. Absolutely not. We agreed, Thomas. No children. Not now, not like this. Adeline's sobs grew louder. Please, Evelyn, I don't know what else to do. I looked from her to Thomas, to the tiny bundle in Adeline's arms. The baby stirred, letting out a soft coo. Something inside me cracked. I need air, I muttered, pushing past Thomas and out of the room. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, my heart pounding. This was it. The moment that would define everything. I could walk away now, leave this mess behind and salvage what was left of my life with Thomas. Or I could stay, accept this responsibility that was never meant to be mine. As I stood there, torn between duty and desire, I realized that whatever choice I made, nothing would ever be the same again. The baby's cries echoed through our once peaceful home, a constant reminder of how drastically our lives had changed. It had been 2 weeks since we'd brought Adeline's daughter home, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of diapers, sleepless nights, and unspoken resentment. I stood in the nursery, gently rocking the infant, when Thomas appeared in the doorway. His eyes were heavy with exhaustion, mirroring my own. "Evelyn," he said softly, "we need to talk." I nodded, placing the now sleeping baby in her crib. We made our way to the kitchen, where I mechanically started brewing coffee. The silence between us was thick with tension. Thomas cleared his throat. "I've been thinking about our situation." I braced myself, knowing whatever he was about to say would change everything. "I think," he continued, "it might be best if you quit your job." The mug I was holding slipped from my fingers, shattering on the floor. "What?" Thomas flinched, but pressed on. "Just temporarily. The baby needs constant care, and my writing deadlines are piling up. We can't afford a full-time nanny, and your jewelry business, well, it's not exactly bringing in steady income." I stared at him, disbelief and rage warring inside me. My business, the one I've poured my heart and soul into for years, the one that was supposed to fund our travels, our dreams? "Evelyn, please," Thomas pleaded. "This isn't forever, just until we figure things out." "Figure things out?" I laughed bitterly. "Thomas, we didn't figure out having a baby. Your sister dumped her responsibilities on us and you just went along with it, and now you want me to give up everything I've worked for?" His face hardened. "This isn't just about you, Evelyn. We have a child to think about now." "She's not our child," I exploded. "She's Adeline's, and once again we're expected to clean up her mess." Thomas's eyes flashed with anger. "How can you be so cold? That little girl in there needs us. She's innocent in all this." "And I'm not?" I shot back. "I didn't ask for any of this, Thomas. We had plans, dreams. What happened to those?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every movement. "Life happened, Evelyn. Sometimes we have to adapt." "Adapt?" I echoed. "Is that what you call completely derailing our lives for your irresponsible sister?" Thomas's face fell, a mix of disappointment and resignation. "I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd want to help." "Help?" I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "I've been helping. I've been up every night, changing diapers, feeding her. I've put my work on hold, but this is too much." I turned away, trying to collect my thoughts. When I faced Thomas again, my decision was made. I won't do it, Thomas. I won't give up my career, my identity, for this. His eyes widened in shock. "Evelyn, please, we can work this out." But I was already moving, grabbing my keys and purse. "I need some time to think, I don't know, but I can't be here right now." "Where are you going?" Thomas called after me, panic edging into his voice. I paused at the door, my hand on the knob. "I don't know. But I do know this. If you make me choose between my life and Adeline's baby, you won't like the choice I make." As I stepped out into the cool evening air, I heard the baby start to cry again. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears of my own. This wasn't the life I'd signed up for, not the future we'd planned together. Walking to my car, I realized with startling clarity that I was at a crossroads. The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain. I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to give. As I drove away from the house, from Thomas, from the life that had been thrust upon me, I made a silent vow. It was time to reclaim my life, my dreams, and if that meant walking away from everything I'd known, then so be it. The lawyer's office felt suffocating, the air thick with tension and unspoken accusations. I sat across from Thomas, avoiding his gaze as our attorney droned on about asset division and custody arrangements. Custody. For a child that wasn't even ours. Mrs. Hartley, the lawyer's voice cut through my thoughts, have you come to a decision about visitation rights for your niece? I flinched at the word niece. It felt wrong, like a poorly fitting garment. I don't think that's necessary, I managed to say. Thomas's head snapped up, his eyes wide with disbelief. Evelyn, you can't be serious. She's family. Is she? I shot back, years of resentment bubbling to the surface. Or is she just another one of Adeline's messes that we're expected to clean up? The lawyer cleared his throat uncomfortably. Perhaps we should take a short recess. But Thomas was already on his feet, his face flushed with anger. How can you be so cold? That little girl needs us. I stood too, my hands shaking. And what about what I need, Thomas? What about our dreams, our plans? Do they mean nothing now? Before he could respond, the office door burst open. Margaret and Joseph stormed in, their faces twisted with righteous indignation. How dare you? Margaret shrieked, pointing an accusing finger at me. How dare you abandon that innocent child? I stumbled back, overwhelmed by the sudden onslaught. This isn't. Joseph stepped forward, his voice low and menacing. We always knew you were too practical, too career-focused, but we never thought you'd be cruel. The room spun around me, accusations flying from all sides. I caught fragments of their tirade, selfish, heartless, unfit to be a mother. Each word felt like a physical blow. Enough, I shouted, surprising even myself with the force of my voice. The room fell silent, all eyes on me. You want to talk about cruelty? I said, my voice shaking with emotion. Let's talk about how you've enabled Adeline's behavior for years. Let's talk about how you've consistently put her needs above everyone else's, including your own son's. I turned to Thomas, tears stinging my eyes. And you? You promised me a life of adventure, of shared dreams. But the moment Adeline snapped her fingers, you were ready to throw it all away. Evelyn, please, Thomas pleaded, reaching for my hand. I jerked away. No, I said, my resolve hardening. I'm done. I'm done being the responsible one, the one who has to sacrifice everything for someone else's mistakes. I grabbed the divorce papers from the lawyer's desk, scrawling my signature across the bottom. There. It's done. The room erupted into chaos. Margaret wailed, Joseph shouted, and Thomas just stared at me, a mix of shock and sorrow etched across his face. As I turned to leave, he caught my arm. Evelyn, wait. We can work this out. Please, don't throw away 6 years of marriage. I looked into his eyes, searching for the man I'd fallen in love with. But all I saw was a stranger, someone whose priorities had shifted so dramatically that I no longer recognized him. It's not me throwing it away, Thomas, I said softly. You did that the moment you chose Adeline's drama over our life together. With that, I walked out of the office, out of the building, and into the bright sunlight. My legs felt weak, my heart racing as the magnitude of what I'd just done washed over me. As I stood on the sidewalk, untethered and alone for the first time in years, a strange mix of terror and exhilaration coursed through me. I had no idea what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I was finally free to find out on my own terms. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Claire. How did it go? Are you okay? I took a deep breath, my fingers hovering over the keypad. Was I okay? I honestly didn't know. But as I looked up at the vast sky above me, I felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever came next, it would be my choice, my life. I typed a quick reply. It's done. Can I stay with you for a while? I think I need a fresh start. As I hit send, I felt the first tentative steps towards a new beginning. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt ready to face it head-on. The gentle hum of my jewelry studio filled the air as I carefully set a sapphire into a delicate silver setting. 3 months had passed since I'd walked away from my old life, and I was finally starting to feel like myself again. My small apartment above Claire's garage wasn't much, but it was mine. No drama, no expectations, just peace. The shrill ring of my phone shattered the tranquility. Thomas's name flashed on the screen. My heart raced as I debated answering. We hadn't spoken since the divorce was finalized. Against my better judgment, I picked up. Evelyn? Thomas's voice was strained, panicked. I need your help. It's Dad. He's had a heart attack. The world tilted on its axis. Despite everything, Joseph had been like a father to me for years. Is he? He's stable but critical. Mom's a mess, and I can't handle everything alone. The baby, my deadlines, now this. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of responsibility settling back onto my shoulders. What about Adeline? Thomas's bitter laugh crackled through the line. She's in Bali with her new boyfriend, unreachable as usual. Of course she was. Some things never changed. Please, Evelyn, Thomas pleaded. I know I have no right to ask, but... I'll be there in an hour, I heard myself say, already reaching for my keys. The hospital was a chaos of beeping machines and hushed whispers. I found Margaret slumped in a chair outside Joseph's room, her face pale and drawn. Oh, Evelyn, she whimpered, reaching for me. I'm so glad you're here. I hesitated, then awkwardly patted her hand. How is he? Stable, but... She trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. The doctors say he'll need round-the-clock care when he comes home. I don't know how we'll manage. I glanced into Joseph's room, where Thomas stood by the bed, cradling Adeline's baby. The sight of them together sent a pang through my chest, a bittersweet reminder of the life I'd left behind. Thomas looked up, relief washing over his face when he saw me. Evelyn, thank God. Can you take Emma? I need to talk to the doctors. Before I could protest, he was pressing the baby into my arms. Emma gurgled, her tiny hand grasping my finger. I felt my resolve weakening. The next few days passed in a blur of hospital visits, sleepless nights, and frantic juggling of responsibilities. I found myself slipping back into old patterns, coordinating care schedules, fielding calls from concerned relatives, all while trying to keep my fledgling jewelry business afloat. One evening, as I was heating a bottle for Emma, Thomas cornered me in the kitchen. Evelyn, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done. I shrugged, avoiding his gaze. It's fine, anyone would do the same. No, they wouldn't, he said softly. You're extraordinary. I was a fool to let you go. My heart stuttered. Thomas, don't... I miss you, he blurted out. We all do. Emma needs a mother, and I need you. For a moment, I let myself imagine it, slipping back into this life, raising Emma, being part of a family again. But then I remembered the suffocation, the loss of self, the constant sacrifices. No, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I can't do this again, Thomas. I won't. His face fell. But everything's different now. We could make it work this time. I shook my head, feeling tears prick at my eyes. Nothing's changed. Adeline's still irresponsible. Your parents still enable her. And you? You still expect me to give up everything for someone else's choices. That's not fair, Thomas protested. Isn't it? I countered. Where's Adeline now? Why isn't she here helping her own parents? Thomas had no answer. I handed him the bottle. I'm sorry about your father, and I hope he recovers soon. But I can't stay. This isn't my life anymore. As I turned to leave, Margaret appeared in the doorway, her eyes wild. Joseph's taken a turn for the worse. The doctors say we need to prepare for the worst. Thomas looked at me, desperation etched across his face. Evelyn, please, don't go. Not now. We need you. I stood frozen, torn between the urge to flee and the pull of familiar obligations. In that moment, I realized that the true test of my newfound independence was yet to come. I stood in the hospital hallway, my heart pounding as I watched Thomas and Margaret rush into Joseph's room, the weight of their expectations, their need, pressed down on me like a physical force. For a moment, I wavered, the urge to step in and take control almost overwhelming. But then I heard it, a soft cry from the waiting area. Emma, Adeline's daughter, my almost niece, was awake and fussing in her carrier. As I looked at her, a stark realization hit me. This wasn't my responsibility. It never had been. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd sworn I'd never use again. Hello? Adeline's voice, carefree and slightly slurred, answered on the third ring. Adeline, it's Evelyn. Your father's had a heart attack. He might not make it. You need to come home. Now. There was a long pause, then a sigh. I can't just leave, Evelyn. I'm in the middle of a shoot and... No, I cut her off, my voice hard. No more excuses. This is your family, Adeline. Your daughter. Your responsibility. Not mine. Not anymore. I hung up before she could respond, a strange sense of calm washing over me. I walked back to Joseph's room, where Thomas and Margaret were huddled together, tears streaming down their faces. I've called Adeline. I announced. She's on her way. Thomas looked up, hope and gratitude shining in his eyes. Thank you, Evelyn. I don't know what we'd do without you. I shook my head. No, Thomas. This is the last time. I'm not staying. But, Margaret began, but I held up a hand. I'm sorry about Joseph, truly, but this isn't my life anymore. You all need to learn to handle your own problems without expecting me to swoop in and fix everything. I turned to leave, but Thomas caught my arm. Evelyn, please, we can work this out. We can be a family again. For a moment, I let myself imagine it, the life I'd once thought I wanted. But as I looked at Thomas, at Margaret, at little Emma in her carrier, I realized something profound. I didn't want that life anymore. I wanted my own. Goodbye, Thomas, I said softly, gently removing his hand from my arm. Take care of your family. I need to take care of myself now. As I walked out of the hospital, my phone buzzed with a news alert. I glanced at it, then stopped in my tracks. The headline read, Local model Adeline Hartley arrested for theft and fraud. I stared at the screen, a mix of emotions washing over me. Shock, anger, and then relief. It was as if the last thread tying me to my old life had finally snapped. Weeks passed. I threw myself into my work, my jewelry designs gaining recognition in local artisan circles. I heard through the grapevine that Joseph had recovered, that Adeline was facing charges, that Thomas was struggling to balance his writing with single parenthood. But for the first time in years, I felt no obligation to step in and help. One sunny afternoon, as I was putting the finishing touches on a new necklace design, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Claire standing there, a wide smile on her face. Get dressed, she announced. We're going out to celebrate. Celebrate what? I asked, bemused. She thrust a magazine into my hands. There, on the cover, was a photo of one of my necklaces, with the headline, Rising Star Evelyn Carter's unique jewelry designs take the art world by storm. As I stared at the cover, tears welling in my eyes, I felt a surge of pride and joy unlike anything I'd experienced before. This was my achievement, my dream realized. You did it, Ev, Claire said softly. You found yourself again. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. As we headed out into the bright afternoon sun, I felt lighter than I had in years. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see where it might lead. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Thomas. For a moment, I hesitated, then decisively switched it off. Whatever crisis he was facing, it wasn't mine to solve. My life was my own now, and I was finally truly free to live it on my own terms. The crash of shattering glass jolted me from my fitful sleep. I bolted upright, heart pounding, as Martha's shrill voice pierced the air. Alex! Come quick! I've broken my favorite vase. I groaned, rubbing my eyes as I glanced at the clock. 3:17 a.m. This was the third time this week my mother-in-law had woken us in the middle of the night. I turned to Alex, expecting to see him stirring, but he was already out of bed, rushing to his mother's aid. It's okay, Mom. I heard him soothe from down the hall. We'll get you a new one tomorrow. I sighed, knowing full well who'd be footing the bill for that replacement. As I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my daughter Emily appeared in the doorway, her face etched with worry. Is everything all right, Mom? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. I forced a smile. Everything's fine, sweetie. Grandma just had a little accident. Go back to bed. Emily hesitated, then nodded and retreated to her room. I followed her out, determined to assess the damage. As I approached Martha's room, which used to be our guest room, I overheard her conversation with Alex. Oh, darling, it was such a beautiful piece. Imported from Italy, you know. I simply must have another one just like it. Of course, Mom, Alex replied, his tone placating. We'll go shopping first thing in the morning. I stepped into view, arms crossed. Alex, can I talk to you for a moment? He looked up, startled, as if he'd forgotten I existed. Becky, honey, can't it wait until morning? Mom's upset. It's important, I insisted, my jaw clenched. Alex sighed, patting his mother's hand. I'll be right back, Mom. We stepped into the hallway, and I wasted no time. Alex, we can't afford to keep replacing everything she breaks. Do you know how much that vase cost? He ran a hand through his hair, avoiding my gaze. I know. But what am I supposed to do? She's grieving, Becky. It's only been 6 months since Dad passed. I understand that, I said, trying to keep my voice low. But she's burning through our savings. The credit card bills are piling up, and Emily needs new clothes for school. Alex's face hardened. My mother needs us right now. Emily can make do with what she has for a little longer. I felt my temper flare. And what about what we need? What about our family? Mom is family? He snapped. Alex? Martha's voice drifted from the bedroom. Is everything all right? Fine, Mom, he called back, then turned to me. We'll discuss this later. Go back to bed. As he retreated to Martha's room, I stood there, seething. This wasn't the first time Alex had chosen his mother's comfort over our family's needs, and I had a sinking feeling it wouldn't be the last. I made my way to the kitchen, knowing sleep would elude me now. As I filled the kettle for tea, I noticed a stack of shopping bags in the corner, more of Martha's recent purchases. Curiosity got the better of me, and I peeked inside one of the bags. My breath caught as I pulled out a designer handbag, the price tag still attached. The cost was more than our monthly grocery budget. What are you doing? I whirled around to find Martha standing in the doorway. Her eyes narrowed suspiciously. I was just tidying up, I lied, hastily shoving the bag back into place. She sniffed, clearly not believing me. Well, since you're up, be a dear and make me some chamomile tea. This dreadful accident has left me quite shaken. I bit back a retort, forcing a smile. Of course, Martha, coming right up. As I prepared her tea, my mind raced. How much longer could we go on like this? Something had to give, and soon. Little did I know this was just the beginning of a storm that would tear our family apart and force me to fight for everything I held dear. I stared at the credit card statement in disbelief, my hands shaking. The balance had nearly doubled since last month, and I knew exactly why. Martha's shopping sprees were spiraling out of control. Alex, we need to talk, I called out, my voice strained. He sauntered into the kitchen, coffee mug in hand. What's up, honey? I thrust the statement at him. This is what's up. Your mother's spending is out of control. We can't keep living like this. Alex's face hardened as he glanced at the paper. Come on, Becky. It's not that bad. Mom's just trying to feel better after losing Dad. Not that bad, I sputtered. Alex, we're talking thousands of dollars here. On what? Designer clothes? Antiques? Things we don't need and can't afford. He set his mug down with a clank. What do you want me to do? Tell her she can't buy things? She's grieving, Becky. It's been 8 months, Alex. Grief doesn't justify financial ruin. Just then, Martha breezed into the kitchen, decked out in what looked like a brand new "Good morning, dears. Alex, be a love and take me shopping today. I simply must have those new throw pillows I saw in the catalog." I watched in horror as Alex nodded without hesitation. Sure, Mom. We'll go after breakfast. Alex, I hissed, but he shot me a warning look. Martha turned to me, her smile sickeningly sweet. Oh, Becky, I almost forgot. I accidentally spilled some wine on that quilt your grandmother made. I'll need you to take it to the cleaners. My blood ran cold. That quilt was a family heirloom, irreplaceable. You what? It's just a quilt, dear, Martha said dismissively. No need to get upset. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Alex quickly intervened. Don't worry, Mom. We'll take care of it. As Martha sashayed out of the kitchen, I rounded on Alex. How can you let her treat our things, my family heirlooms, like this? He sighed, rubbing his temples. It was an accident, Becky. Let it go. Let it go? Like I'm supposed to let go of our savings? Our future? Emily's college fund? Alex's eyes flashed. That's enough. I won't have you talking about my mother like this. She's family, and we take care of family. What about our family? I shot back. What about Emily? She needs new clothes for school, but we can't afford them because your mother's buying $500 throw pillows. We'll figure it out, he said dismissively. Now, I need to get ready to take Mom shopping. As he walked away, I felt something inside me snap. I grabbed my phone and dialed my sister's number. Mackenzie? I need to talk. Can we meet for coffee? An hour later, I sat across from my sister in our favorite cafe, pouring out my frustrations. Mackenzie listened intently, her brow furrowed. Becky, this isn't healthy, for any of you. Have you considered counseling? I laughed bitterly. Alex won't hear of it. He thinks everything's fine. And what about you? She asked gently. What do you think? I stared into my coffee, fighting back tears. I think I'm losing my husband and my sanity. Mackenzie reached across the table, squeezing my hand. You need to stand up for yourself, Becky. For Emily, too. This can't go on. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Alex. Mom wants to redo the guest room, picking out furniture now. Don't wait up. I showed Mackenzie the message, my hands trembling with anger. Her eyes widened. The guest room? Isn't that where Emily's been sleeping since Martha moved in? I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. What am I going to do, Mac? How did it come to this? Mackenzie's gaze hardened with determination. You're going to fight, sis. It's time to take back control of your life, and I'll be right here to help you do it. As I left the cafe, a mix of fear and resolve churned in my stomach. I knew a storm was coming, and I had to be ready to weather it, for myself and for Emily. I stood in the doorway of Emily's room, my heart sinking as I watched her pack her belongings into cardboard boxes. The hurt in her eyes was palpable, and it tore at my soul. "Mom, why do I have to move?" Emily asked, her voice cracking. "This is my room." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my composure. "I know, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. Your father thinks it's best if Grandma has more space." Emily slammed a book into a box. More space? For what? Her stupid antiques? Before I could respond, Alex appeared behind me. "What's going on here?" I turned to face him, steeling myself. "Emily's upset about moving rooms, and frankly, so am I." Alex's jaw tightened. "We've been over this, Becky. Mom needs the extra space." "For what?" I challenged. "Her endless shopping sprees?" "That's enough," Alex snapped. "Emily, finish packing. You're moving to the basement today." Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. "The basement? But it's cold and damp down there." I couldn't hold back any longer. "Alex, this is ridiculous. You can't put our daughter in the basement." He grabbed my arm, pulling me into the hallway. "I said that's enough. This isn't up for discussion." I yanked my arm free, fury building inside me. "Like hell it isn't. This is our daughter we're talking about." "Mom's comfort is important too," Alex insisted. "More important than Emily's?" I shot back. Our raised voices drew Martha from her room. She glided towards us, a look of feigned concern on her face. "What's all this fuss about?" Alex turned to his mother, his voice softening. "It's nothing, Mom. We're just discussing Emily's room change." Martha's eyes lit up. "Oh yes, I can't wait to start decorating. I'm thinking of a Parisian theme. It'll be simply divine." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Martha, this is Emily's room. She's lived here her entire life." Martha waved her hand dismissively. "She's young. She'll adapt. Now, Alex dear, I need you to take me shopping for new curtains." I watched in horror as Alex nodded, completely disregarding the pain he was causing his own daughter. Something inside me snapped. "No," I said firmly. Alex and Martha turned to me, shocked. "What did you say?" Alex demanded. "I said no," I repeated, my voice growing stronger. "Emily is not moving to the basement. This is her room, and she's staying in it." Martha's face contorted with anger. "How dare you speak to me like that in my own home?" "Your home," I laughed bitterly. "This is our home. The home Alex and I built together. The home where we raised our daughter." Alex stepped between us. "Becky, you're out of line. Apologize to my mother." I stared at him in disbelief. "Apologize? For what? For standing up for our daughter?" Emily appeared in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "Stop it! Just stop fighting!" The sight of my daughter's distress fueled my resolve. I turned to Alex, my voice low and determined. "This ends now. Either Martha goes or Emily and I do." A heavy silence fell over the hallway. Alex's face paled as he realized the gravity of the situation. Martha sputtered indignantly, but for once, she seemed at a loss for words. Emily moved to my side, gripping my hand tightly. I squeezed back, drawing strength from her presence. Alex looked between us and his mother, conflict etched across his face. "Becky, you can't be serious. You wouldn't leave." I met his gaze steadily. "Try me." As we stood there, the air thick with tension, I realized we had reached a turning point. There was no going back now. Whatever happened next would change our family forever. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for the storm that was about to break. "So, Alex," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "what's it going to be?" The tension in our house was suffocating. After my ultimatum, Alex had reluctantly agreed to let Emily keep her room, but the rift between us had only widened. Martha, for her part, had retreated into a sullen silence, punctuated by dramatic sighs and pointed glares in my direction. It was in this strained atmosphere that Alex announced his grand plan to fix everything. "We're having a family dinner tonight," he declared over breakfast. "Mom's idea. She wants to smooth things over." I eyed him skeptically. "And how exactly is dinner supposed to fix this?" Alex's smile was strained. "Just give it a chance, Becky, please." Against my better judgment, I agreed. That evening, I found myself helping Martha in the kitchen, chopping vegetables while she stirred a pot on the stove. "I hope you like bouillabaisse," Martha chirped, her tone overly sweet. "It's Alex's favorite." I froze, knife hovering over a carrot. "Bouillabaisse?" "Martha, you know Emily's allergic to shellfish." She waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, I'm sure it's not that serious. Besides, she can pick around it." Before I could protest further, Alex walked in. "Smells great, Mom. What are we having?" "Your favorite, dear," Martha beamed. "Bouillabaisse." I waited for Alex to object, to remember his daughter's allergy. Instead, he grinned. "Perfect. I haven't had that in ages." My blood began to boil. "Alex, a word?" I pulled him into the hallway, keeping my voice low. "Have you forgotten about Emily's allergy? She can't eat that." Alex rolled his eyes. "Come on, Becky. It's not like she'll die from it. She can have a salad or something." I stared at him, dumbfounded. "Are you serious right now? This is our daughter's health we're talking about." "You're overreacting," he snapped. "Just let Mom have this, okay? She's trying to make peace." As Alex stormed back to the kitchen, I felt a familiar hand on my shoulder. Emily had overheard everything. "It's okay, Mom," she said softly. "I'll just eat the bread." My heart broke at the resignation in her voice. "No, sweetie, this isn't okay." Dinner was a tense affair. Martha prattled on about her latest shopping finds while Alex nodded along enthusiastically. I pushed food around my plate, my appetite gone. Emily sat silently, nibbling on a piece of bread. "Emily, dear," Martha suddenly addressed her. "You've hardly touched your food. Don't you like Grandma's cooking?" Emily shifted uncomfortably. I can't eat it, Grandma. Remember? I'm allergic to shellfish." Martha's eyes narrowed. "Don't be ridiculous. A little seafood never hurt anyone. You're just being picky." "Mom," Alex interjected, "maybe you could make Emily a sandwich or something." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you kidding me? Your mother makes a meal our daughter is allergic to, and your solution is to have Emily make her own dinner?" Martha huffed. Well, I certainly didn't slave over a hot stove all day to cater to her imaginary allergies. That was the last straw. Emily burst into tears and ran from the table. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Imaginary?" I seethed. "The last time Emily ate shellfish, she ended up in the hospital. But I guess that was just her imagination too, right?" Alex stood as well, his face red with anger. "That's enough, Becky. You're ruining dinner." "I'm ruining dinner?" I laughed bitterly. "You two are unbelievable. Your own daughter's health means nothing to you." As I turned to go after Emily, Martha's voice stopped me cold. "You know, Alex, I always said you married beneath you, and now look at the ungrateful brats you've raised." The room fell silent. I looked at Alex, waiting for him to defend us, to stand up to his mother at last, but he said nothing. In that moment, I knew. This wasn't just about tonight's dinner. This was about years of neglect, of choosing his mother over his family. And I was done. I met Alex's gaze, my voice steady. "Pack your bags. Emily and I are leaving tonight." As I walked out of the dining room to comfort my daughter and plan our escape, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. Our lives were about to change dramatically. But for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. I sat on Mackenzie's couch, clutching a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. Emily was asleep in the guest room, exhausted from crying. We'd been at my sister's house for 3 days now, and I still felt like I was in a daze. "Becky," Mackenzie said gently, "you need to decide what you're going to do next." I nodded, my eyes burning with unshed tears. "I know. I never thought it would come to this." Mackenzie reached out and squeezed my hand. "Alex has called you a dozen times. Have you listened to any of his messages?" I shook my head. "I can't. Not yet. Every time I think about that dinner, about how he just sat there while Martha—" My voice broke, and Mackenzie pulled me into a hug. "I know, sis, I know." As I pulled away, wiping my eyes, my phone buzzed. Another message from Alex. This time, curiosity got the better of me, and I hit play. "Becky, please," Alex's voice crackled through the speaker. "Come home. We can work this out. Mom's agreed to move into an apartment nearby. Please just give us another chance." I looked at Mackenzie, my heart racing. "He says Martha's moving out." My sister's eyes narrowed. "And you believe that?" The doubt in her voice mirrored my own. I sighed, deleting the message. "No, I don't." Mackenzie nodded, then hesitated. "Becky, there's something you need to see." She pulled out her laptop and opened a series of documents. As I scanned them, my blood ran cold. "What is this?" I whispered. "Bank statements," Mackenzie replied. "I had a friend look into your finances. Alex has been funneling money into a separate account for months, an account in Martha's name." The room spun as the implications hit me. All those times I'd questioned our dwindling savings, all the excuses Alex had made. "He's been lying to me," I said, my voice hollow. "All this time he's been—" "Stealing from you," Mackenzie finished. "From Emily's college fund, from your retirement savings, everything." A wave of nausea washed over me. "How much?" Mackenzie's face was grim. "Almost everything, Becky. If you don't act soon, there might not be anything left." I stood up abruptly, pacing the room. Anger, betrayal, and fear warred within me. What am I going to do? How can I protect Emily, our future? Mackenzie stood, placing her hands on my shoulders to still my frantic movement. "You fight, Becky. You take control. Starting now." She guided me back to the couch and opened another document on her laptop. "I've drafted divorce papers. All you have to do is sign." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. This was it, the point of no return. "If I do this," I said slowly, "there's no going back." "Why?" Mackenzie nodded. "No, there isn't. But think about Emily. Think about yourself. You deserve better than this, Becky. Both of you do." As if on cue, Emily appeared in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed but determined. "Mom, what's going on?" I looked at my daughter, seeing the strength and resilience that mirrored my own. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. "Come here, sweetie," I said, patting the couch beside me. As Emily sat down, I took a deep breath. "We need to talk about the future. Our future." Emily's eyes widened as she looked at the laptop screen. Are we?" I nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm settle over me. "Yes, honey. I'm filing for divorce. We're starting over." To my surprise, Emily's face broke into a relieved smile. "Good," she said firmly. "We don't need them, Mom. We'll be okay on our own." Tears pricked my eyes as I hugged my daughter close. Over her shoulder, I met Mackenzie's gaze and nodded. "You're right," I said, reaching for the pen. "We will be okay." As I signed my name on the divorce papers, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would be hard, but for the first time in years, I felt hope. Hope for a future free from manipulation and betrayal. Hope for a life where Emily and I could thrive. I closed the laptop, my decision made. "Mackenzie, can you call your lawyer friend? It's time to take back our lives." The lawyer's office felt suffocating as I sat across from Alex, the divorce papers between us like a chasm. Mackenzie squeezed my hand under the table, a silent reminder of her support. Emily waited outside, insisting on being here despite my reservations. "You can't be serious about this, Becky," Alex pleaded, his eyes darting between me and the papers. "We can work it out. I'll send Mom to a retirement community, please." I steeled myself against the familiar pull of his words. "It's too late for that, Alex. You've made your choice, time and time again." Our lawyer, Sarah, cleared her throat. "Mr. Drew, we've outlined the division of assets. Given the circumstances, Mrs. Sullivan is entitled to—" "Entitled?" Alex's face contorted with anger. "She's not entitled to anything. It's my money." I felt a surge of righteous fury. "Your money? The money you've been funneling to your mother? The money from our daughter's college fund?" Alex paled, caught off guard. "How did you?" "It doesn't matter," I cut him off. "What matters is that you betrayed us, Alex, me and Emily both." Sarah intervened, her voice calm but firm. "Mr. Drew, given the evidence of financial misconduct, you're facing serious legal consequences. This settlement is more than fair." Alex's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but he shook his head, eyes blazing. "I won't sign. You can't make me." "Then we'll see you in court," Sarah replied coolly. As we stood to leave, the door burst open. Martha stormed in, her face a mask of fury. "You ungrateful witch! How dare you try to ruin my son's life?" Mackenzie stepped between us, but Martha was undeterred. "After everything we've done for you, Alex, don't you dare sign those papers. She doesn't deserve a penny." I watched as Alex's resolve visibly strengthened under his mother's influence. Any hope of an amicable resolution evaporated. "Fine," I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. "We'll do this the hard way." As we left the office, Emily rushed to my side. "Mom, what happened?" I hugged her close, my heart breaking at the worry in her eyes. "It's okay, sweetie. We're going to be okay." But as we drove home, the reality of our situation crashed over me. A lengthy court battle would drain what little resources we had left. How would I provide for Emily? How could I fight Alex and Martha's combined resources? At home, I excused myself and retreated to the bathroom, finally allowing the tears to fall. The weight of everything, the betrayal, the uncertainty, the fear, threatened to crush me. A soft knock interrupted my breakdown. "Mom?" Emily's voice called. "Can I come in?" I quickly wiped my eyes and opened the door. Emily took one look at me and wrapped her arms around my waist. "We're going to make it," she said fiercely. "We don't need them. We have each other." Her words, so full of conviction, pierced through my despair. I hugged her back, marveling at her strength. "You're right," I whispered. "We do have each other." As we stood there, I felt a shift inside me. The fear and doubt receded, replaced by a steely determination. Alex and Martha had underestimated me for the last time. I gently pulled away from Emily, meeting her gaze. "Honey, I need you to be strong for a little while longer. Things might get tough, but I promise you, I'm going to fight for us with everything I have." Emily nodded, her jaw set in a determined line that mirrored my own. "I know, Mom, and I'll be right here with you." In that moment, looking at my brave, resilient daughter, I knew I had to win this battle, not just for myself, but for her future, for the life we deserved. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. "Okay," I said, more to myself than to Emily. "Let's show them what we're made of." As we walked out of the bathroom together, I felt a newfound resolve coursing through me. The road ahead would be hard, but I was ready. Ready to fight, ready to reclaim our lives, and ready to build a future free from Alex and Martha's toxic influence. The real battle was just beginning, and I was prepared to give it everything I had. The moving truck rumbled to life outside our house. No, Alex's house now. I stood in the barren living room, surrounded by empty spaces where our life together once resided. Emily appeared at my side, her face a mix of determination and apprehension. "Is this really happening, Mom?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I squeezed her hand. "Yes, sweetie, it's time." As if on cue, the front door burst open. Alex stormed in, his face contorted with rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I steeled myself, meeting his gaze. "We're leaving, Alex, for good." His eyes darted around the room, taking in the bare walls and empty spaces. "You can't just take everything. This is my house." "Your house?" I laughed bitterly. "Everything I'm taking, I bought with my own money. Money you didn't manage to funnel into your mother's account." Alex's face paled. "You don't understand. Mom needed—" "Save it." I cut him off. "We're done here." As we moved towards the door, Martha appeared, her eyes widening at the sight of the empty house. "What have you done, you spiteful witch?" I felt Emily tense beside me, but I stood my ground. "I'm taking back what's rightfully ours, Martha. You've taken enough from us." Martha's face twisted with fury. She lunged forward, grabbing a vase, one of the few items left, and hurled it at us. I pushed Emily out of the way, feeling the sting as shards of ceramic sliced my arm. "Mom!" Emily cried out. "That's assault!" Mackenzie's voice rang out. She stood in the doorway, phone in hand, recording everything. "It's all on video, Martha. Back off." Alex grabbed his mother's arm, finally seeming to realize the gravity of the situation. "Mom, stop. This isn't helping." I clutched my bleeding arm, adrenaline coursing through me. "We're leaving now. Our lawyer will be in touch." As we walked out, I heard Martha's shrill voice. "You'll regret this, Rebecca. We'll destroy you in court." The drive to our new apartment was tense. Emily kept glancing at my arm, worry etched on her face. "Are you okay, Mom?" I managed to smile. "I'm fine, sweetie. It's just a scratch." But inside I was trembling. Martha's threat echoed in my mind. Could they really destroy us in court? I thought of the meager savings we had left, the uncertain future ahead. At the new apartment, reality hit hard. Our furniture looked shabby in the harsh light of the empty rooms. Emily's face fell as she surveyed her tiny bedroom. "It's cozy," she said, trying to sound upbeat. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I know this isn't what you're used to." She turned to me, her eyes fierce. "Don't apologize, Mom. We're free now. That's what matters." As we unpacked, my phone buzzed incessantly. Texts from Alex, voicemails from Martha, emails from their lawyer. Each notification felt like a blow, chipping away at my resolve. Late that night, after Emily had gone to bed, I sat on our secondhand couch, overwhelmed by the enormity of what we'd done. The apartment felt alien, a far cry from the home we'd left behind. Doubt crept in, insidious and persistent. Had I made a terrible mistake? Could I really provide for Emily on my own? What if Martha was right and they did destroy us in court? I buried my face in my hands, tears flowing freely. The weight of our uncertain future pressed down on me, threatening to crush my spirit. A soft touch on my shoulders startled me. Emily stood there, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Mom, are you okay?" I tried to wipe away my tears to be strong for her, but I couldn't stop the sobs that racked my body. Emily sat beside me, wrapping her arms around me. "It's okay, Mom," she whispered. "We're going to be okay." As I clung to my daughter, I realized the true magnitude of what lay ahead. This wasn't just about surviving a divorce or standing up to Martha. This was about rebuilding our entire lives from the ground up. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with legal battles and financial struggles. But looking at Emily, seeing her strength and resilience, I knew one thing for certain. We would face it together, no matter what came our way. I stood outside the courthouse, my heart pounding. Today was the final hearing in our divorce case. Emily squeezed my hand, her presence a steady anchor in the storm of emotions swirling within me. "You've got this, Mom," she whispered. As we walked in, I caught sight of Alex and Martha. They looked haggard, a far cry from the polished, entitled pair they'd been months ago. Our eyes met, and for a moment I saw a flicker of regret in Alex's gaze. But then Martha whispered something in his ear, and his face hardened once more. The hearing was a blur of legal jargon and tense exchanges. Our lawyer presented evidence of Alex's financial misconduct, of Martha's lavish spending at our expense. I watched as the judge's expression grew increasingly stern. When it was my turn to speak, I stood on shaky legs, but as I began to recount our story, the years of manipulation, the disregard for Emily's well-being, the betrayal of our family's future, I felt a strength I didn't know I possessed surge through me. "Your Honor," I concluded, my voice steady, "I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for justice, for a chance to rebuild the life that was stolen from us." The judge's verdict came swiftly. In light of the evidence, she ruled heavily in our favor. Alex was ordered to repay the money he'd funneled to Martha, and a significant portion of our assets were awarded to me and Emily. As the gavel fell, I heard Martha's indignant shriek, "This is outrageous! We'll appeal!" But Alex's shoulders slumped in defeat. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and in that moment, I saw the man I'd once loved, the man who'd been lost to his mother's influence. He nodded once, a silent acknowledgement of the justice served. Outside the courthouse, Emily hugged me fiercely. "We did it, Mom. We really did it." Mackenzie joined our embrace, tears in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you both," she said. As we celebrated that night in our small apartment, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would still be challenging, but for the first time in years, I felt hope for our future. Months passed, and slowly we rebuilt our lives. I threw myself into my work, earning a promotion that allowed us to move to a better apartment. Emily thrived in her new school, her confidence growing day by day. One afternoon, as I helped Emily prepare for her high school entrance exam, she paused, her expression serious. "Mom," she said softly, "I want you to know, I'm proud of you, for standing up to Dad and Grandma, for fighting for us. You're the strongest person I know." Tears welled in my eyes as I hugged her close. "Oh, sweetie, you're the one who gave me strength. We did this together." The day Emily's acceptance letter to the prestigious private high school arrived, we danced around the kitchen, laughing and crying in equal measure. As we collapsed on the couch, breathless with joy, I marveled at how far we'd come. "We made it, Em," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Look at everything we've accomplished." Emily smiled, her eyes shining. "We did, Mom, and it's just the beginning." That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on our journey. The pain, the fear, the uncertainty, it had all led us here to this moment of triumph. We'd faced down the storm and emerged stronger, our bond unbreakable. I thought of Alex and Martha, wondering if they'd found peace in the aftermath of our battle. Part of me hoped they had, that they'd learned from their mistakes. But a larger part of me realized it didn't matter anymore. We'd moved on, creating a life filled with love, respect, and mutual support. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. For my daughter's resilience, for my sister's unwavering support, for the strength I discovered within myself. We'd weathered the storm, and now, finally, we were home. Our story wasn't one of revenge, but of reclamation. We'd reclaimed our dignity, our future, and most importantly, our right to happiness. And as I closed my eyes, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, stronger than ever before.